That's why I tell black people, just to make yourself feel good, don't pump yourself up on a lie. Don't go around talking about, that you don't believe, because you say you don't believe in white supremacy, that, that white supremacists don't tell you what to do, and you're walking around on this planet as black as can be and saying that the white supremacists don't tell you what to do. I run my own business. They don't run my business. I run my own business. Well, stop and think. Stop and think and ask yourself, are you really telling the truth? No, these people don't tell me what to do. That's why I'm where I am today. Well, where are you today? If you're black and anywhere on this planet, exactly where are you today? Anywhere on this planet, if you're not under the system of white supremacy. That's the question. I started off this program like I start off and continue in all programs because it's a scientific fact. All problems are solved through the process of what? Questions and answers. So when a black person says, no white supremacists tell me what to do, oh, then the question is, does anybody tell you what to do, ever? And if so, who, when, where? And then go through the 9 areas of activity. Does anybody tell you what to do in economics? Does anybody tell you what to do and what you better not do in education? Does anybody tell you what to do and what not to do in entertainment, in labor, in law, in politics, in religion, in sex, in war? And if the answer you give me, and you're black, is that nobody tells me what to do. I'm my own boss. I got my own business and everything. You need to stop and think about what you're actually saying. Well, we are in an insane system, all right? A system of white supremacy is a system of insanity, mass insanity, dominating and mistreating people based on color, or dominating and mistreating people for any reason is a form of insanity. I mean, so the system of white supremacy is the most powerful system of government and the most powerful religion ever invented in the minds of people, and it's designed to mistreat people, so you have mass insanity. Nobody can be made sane in this system, white or non-white. It's impossible to be sane in this system. So you just take for granted we're all insane. So it's just a matter of trying to get rid of what causes the insanity. And so you have to get rid of the system of white supremacy in order to do that.
Yes.
And replace it with a system of justice. So even in our insane condition, the first order of business, the first step toward not being insane is what, according to logic? Is to recognize that you're insane.
No, papi.
See, if you know that you're crazy, you're taking the first step toward not being crazy.
I know, black.
All right? So we're all crazy. You have to understand that. Anytime you try to make sense out of what's going on around you and what your entire existence is all about, if you're trying to make sense out of it, you are getting crazier and crazier because there's no sense to make out of it. All right? Not in this system of racism that we're in.
That's right.
You cannot make sense out of it. And once you understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, that's the beginning of coming out of your insane condition. Otherwise, you'll just keep getting crazier and crazier and doing crazy things and looking forward to doing even crazier things.
I know, black.
It's just one answer to all three questions. In order to maintain the system of white supremacy. These are necessary things. Cause confusion in what? All areas of activity. Because like I said earlier in this program, when people are confused, they have to depend on people who are not confused. So the white supremacists use language to confuse people all the time, every day. You can't buy a car, or buy a house without being confused. You can't do anything if you're a person of color anywhere in the world under the system of white supremacy without some kind of confusion being handed to you on a silver platter. See, the platter will be beautiful, the thing that they handed to you in, but they keep that. And whatever was on that platter is loaded with poison, all right? And the poison is designed to do what? Confuse the mind. That's the kind of poison they put out. And they do it mostly by talking. That's why the people who are called in the Northwestern Hemisphere years ago, the people who were designated as called red people, people of color, by the white supremacists, those people said what about the white supremacists? They speak with forked tongue. Say one thing, mean another. If you listen to them, and they keep talking and whatnot, they will talk you out of house and home. They're expert talkers. Like, I sometimes call it Pocahontasism. And if they can't talk to one black person, they'll talk to another. They'll try to find the weakest one. Their record shows this. And this is not anything that Neely Fuller is saying, except I'm repeating what was taught to me. By whom? Directly, indirectly, by people who believed in white supremacy. Many of them. I won't say all, but I'll say the most powerful and smartest ones. They taught me about what? The Indian maiden called Pocahontas. And say, you read this, boy, and you learn it. What we did to people of color, along with what we did to you. Read this. And even though you're reading it, and I'll tell you about it, I told you about your slave history because I got control of all the books. So, you couldn't learn it any other way. I killed off the people who were actually, the first ones. And so I inherited you. You are the illegitimate offspring. That's what the white supremacists tell us every day. You are my illegitimate offspring because I killed off your parents. I killed off the parents of all of the non-white people on the planet until they did what? Until their offspring learned my ways. But I will only teach them enough of my ways to their own detriment.
Nigga,
I'll teach them how to fight each other and all of that. I won't teach them anything that makes them more powerful than me or as powerful as I am. Because I don't believe in justice. I believe in dominating and mistreating people. That's why I'm a white supremacist. Domination and mistreatment of people. That's what white supremacy means. It doesn't mean just, I'm trying to, save myself as a white person, as a species and all like that. That's what they'll say. But see, no one was chasing them down, insisting that you give your woman to me. The white supremacists are doing that to other people, chasing other people all over the place and saying, give your women to me. I'll take them. And don't you touch mine, but I will take all of yours and run through every one of them that I can and produce offspring and then make slaves out of them and have them confused because I will always tell them that some of you are my offspring and get you to fight the other ones, the light skin against the dark skin, and come up with all different kind of religions and have you fighting about that when I am the most powerful of all religions. There's no religion more powerful than the religion of white supremacy. Now, a lot of people will say, well, where'd you get that from, Fuller? I had to come up with that one because that's the truth. Compare any religion, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, Confucianism, Hinduism, with the religion of white supremacy. There's absolutely no comparison. There's never been a religion as powerful as the religion of white supremacy. White males have always mistreated all females and taught black males and encouraged black males to mistreat black females. All right? So females all over the planet, all of the females all over the planet have been grossly, horrendously mistreated and are being mistreated even as we speak. I mean, that mistreatment is not isolated, whatnot. It's just people just mention it every now and then. But it's 24/7. It goes with the system of government that we have, the world government. It is okay to mistreat females, whether you're white or non-white, except if you're non-white, you better be very careful about mistreating a white female, all right? Now you can get into serious trouble. But for a white male to mistreat a white female, that's considered okay among the white supremacists themselves. I mean, that's almost like a handshake deal.
Wow.
And they have always done that. All right? At the same time, they will glorify them, all right, when it comes to other people. But when in the house themselves, they will kick that black female around, that white female around. White men will do that.
Yes,
People
sir.
who have worked in white people's houses have found that out. Particularly back in the old days when
Yes,
you
sir.
had a lot of maids.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes the maid has to come to the rescue of the lady of the house, you might say,
Wow.
and say, you know, Mr. So-and-so, you shouldn't talk to her like that. I mean, she didn't do nothing. She didn't mean no harm and all like that. I mean, you know, the black maid has to intervene in order to help the white female out.
Yes.
You know, or something. But then, on the other hand, the white female is also considering herself a part of the establishment, like in the slave plantation. The white female was abused by the white male, but if the black servant, the black female, who is the maid in the house, even talked back to the lady of the house. Now, wait a minute. All right, who's in charge here?
Okay.
And say, well, I just, Miss Alice, I stood up for you yesterday when Mr. George was talking to you in an abusive fashion, and now you're talking to me in an abusive fashion. Say, yeah, but you're the maid.
Wow.
You are a Negro. You are a subordinate.
Yes.
You have nothing to do with the royal family's arguments.
Yes.
Don't get it mixed up, Hattie. All right? Don't get it mixed up. You are still a subordinate in our house. I mean, you know, hey, it's one thing, white in the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists always let black people know, I'm not only in charge of you.
Yes.
In charge of everything that you claim is yours, including what you say is your woman.
Yeah.
Negro boy. You know? You say you got a wife, you ain't got nothing except what I say you have. You don't have a wife, you don't have children, you don't have anything. Why? Because I got you.
Wow.
All right?
Yeah.
And don't you ever forget it. I can have your wife in bed with me anytime I want to, and your daughters by your wife. And you know it, and I know it, but you turn a blind eye to it because you know you better. Yeah. All right? And that's always been. And that's true in 2017 all over the world. And now we'll, since you don't have any idea of what to do with yourself, not even your own bodies and whatnot, we'll just draw pictures all over your body and have you flock into that. We'll have you working hard, looking forward to getting enough money together to come into the tattoo parlor. And we will draw pictures. We'll draw designs. We'll draw whatever we imagine all over your body, like we used to do under the elevated tracks or over on some abandoned warehouse, because that's what you are. You are an abandoned warehouse. So I will draw tattoos on you and have you pay for it, because you don't have any idea of what to do with yourself. You're just looking around for somebody to tell you what is valuable, what to do, what not to do. You're looking around for somebody to tell you this, and we have always done the telling, because you don't have any idea of what to do with yourself. So that's what we do with you people. We always have ideas about what we are going to do. You don't have any ideas about what you are going to do when you get your cap and gown and walk out of an institution that I set up for you to get your learning. You have to look to me, and I will always tell you what to do and will always be to my advantage because I'm a white supremacist. That's the way that works. White supremacy takes in 9 areas of activity, and anything that a white supremacist does is to strengthen the system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy is already an institution. That's just another way of saying the system of white supremacy when you say institutionalized racism. Racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism. It's no other form of racism. So that's already in place. So I call it in capital letters the system of white supremacy. And that covers all areas of activity that involve non-white people who are the victims of the system of white supremacy. And those areas of activity are economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. That covers just about everything that everybody is engaged in at any minute of any day, anywhere on the planet, both white people and non-white people. I mean, and all of these areas of activity are interrelated. Religion is associated or interrelated with politics. Politics is interrelated with education. Education is interrelated with economics. Economics is interrelated with religion, and so on and so on and so on. So what the white supremacists did, they looked at the non-white people, the people of color on the planet, and say, we are going to dominate all of these people simultaneously, all of the time, in everything that they do and say. And we are going to figure out a way to not only dominate them, but we are going to mistreat them. Oh. We're not just going to be their bosses.
Okay.
We're going to mistreat them. For what? For fun, for glory, and for material gain.
Okay.
That's what white supremacy is. But the white supremacists will say anything. You will say, well, we have a system of white supremacy in place. It's Neely Fuller. He's going around saying that there's a system of white supremacy. And the white supremacists will say, if they think it will work for them, they'll just simply say, Neely Fuller is crazy. There's no such thing as white supremacy. It doesn't exist. It never did exist. He's making it all up. They'll say anything. A white supremacist will say anything that they think that people will believe. They don't care. They use words to do one thing, to strengthen their position that's already in place. Well, in answer to the last question, first, no, different white supremacists are very skilled, very adaptable, the most sophisticated ones. They know the white code. So they say, okay, here comes the black guy who, works down on the dock and whatnot, and he likes hip-hop. So, okay, so I'll learn a little bit about hip-hop, and so that way I can talk to him a little bit about him. He'll be relaxed and whatnot, and then I can talk to him about other things that I want him to do that'll fit me, okay? So they'll do that. See, the white supremacists, they are masters of psychology. I mean, they're the best psychologists in the world. They know how the mind works. They know how to make a black person laugh. They know how to make them cry. They know how to make them sad. They know how to do all of this. Why? Because they spend full time studying us. All right? We don't spend any time studying them. We spend full time studying us. Yeah. That's why we don't really learn anything about the world that we are, the real world, and who runs it that we are in. Because we spend all our time watching each other. One slave at the bottom of the ship watching the other slave at the bottom of the ship. Now, how much are you going to learn from that? Except how to have contempt for people who are enslaved, which is what we do, And that's why we go at each other every chance we get.
Yes, sir.
All right. We're down at the bottom of the ship hitting each other with our chains.
Okay.
We're chained now to the ship, the slave ship. That hasn't changed. So we spend our time doing what? Fighting each other in the bottom of the ship. And every now and then the captain of the ship or the sailors in charge, whatnot, white, they come down and splash water on us or something, you know, turn the hose on us on them if they got one sophisticated that, you know, and break up the fight, you know, so that they can get some sleep. Because that's all it is. They don't care about us. I mean, you know, just break up the fight so we can get some sleep. You're disturbing us. You dark people, you slaves and whatnot. The captain has to get his rest. The captain can't put up with all that noise that you sometimes make. They don't mind you fighting each other as long as you don't kill each other, because we got to use you. Okay? We'll let a few of you die. I mean, you know, that goes with the trade. That's part of the business. But that's basically what it's all about.
We are killing each other in order to maintain this system. We have let ourselves become possessed by a spirit such that when we become aggressive, we aggress against the self instead of those who are the source of our aggressive orientation. We talk a lot as a people about self-hatred. Self-hatred is a personality configuration. It is a form of personality organization. It is an orientation toward the world and towards oneself. Self-hatred, then, is the white man's greatest protection against being destroyed by the black man. To a good extent, self-hatred is the white man's defense mechanism, is the white man's form of self-defense. How can we say that? To a great extent, one function of the personality is to direct energy, to direct aggression, to channel aggression and energy and wishes and impulses in particular directions, to organize feelings, to organize energy, to achieve certain ends. Those things that we hate, often then when we are angry or hostile, we aggress against them, don't we? We attack them often. We destroy them. Then we have a problem, don't we? If we attack the things we hate, if we attack the things toward which we hold hostility, when we are overly frustrated and when we are angry, then what happens if that thing we hate is ourselves? It means then, ladies and gentlemen, that when we become frustrated and angered as a people, when we are overwrought by feelings of hostility, and our self-hating personality seeks to channel that hostility and channel that aggression, it's going to channel the aggression right back on to the self, because that's the thing we hate most. So consequently, black anger then becomes a conduit for black self-destruction, for black self-defeat. The object of our hostile, aggressive feelings becomes ourselves. And you can see then how the white man is protected by that personality structure, right? While he stokes our anger, while he stokes our hostility, while he stokes our frustration, and while we get mad and we want to strike out, when we decide to strike out and aggress, we strike out and aggress against the self. And by doing so, he is left untouched and unscathed. And therefore, our self-hatred becomes his principal means of defending himself and of maintaining himself. One of the things that frightened him most about the Ferguson case was that Ferguson's self-hatred mechanism broke down. Unlike many deaf, dumb, and blind Negroes, he knew who his enemies were. And so when he got angry and hostile, instead of going out to drink himself to death, instead of going out to smoke crack and destroy himself, instead of going out to killing someone who looked like himself, instead of going out to commit suicide and put himself in a place to be destroyed by somebody else, he went directly to the source of his frustration. And this is what frightened those people. They were wondering how many more are there like that, and are they increasing?
When you have an identity, it is difficult for another person to impose a set of values on you, because having a positive identity and a solid identity is a defense against being penetrated by alien forces. A positive identity functions to locate us in the world, in space and in time and in history. A positive identity gives us a sense of purpose and a sense of direction. A positive identity provides us with self-knowledge and direction. A positive identity provides us with a sense of belongingness. When we say we are African, we are not merely identifying ourselves as individuals. We indicate that we belong to a people, to a culture, to a nation, that we belong to a system of values, a system of perceptions, a system of behavior, folkways, and mores. A system, an identity permits us to cooperate with other people. It permits us to understand what role we must play within a particular group. An identity permits us to know our own interests. An identity permits us to provide ourselves with an evaluative system, permits us to evaluate what is going on in the world. An identity provides us with a defense against possession. I've often said that we cannot be African and be slaves and subordinates of other people at the same time. We cannot be fully identified and at one with our African identity and be subordinate to another people. The European, of course, recognized this immediately. That is why when we talk about our slave history, we often talk about the destruction of African culture. We talk about the rewriting of black history as an attempt, again, of destroying the African culture and an African personality. We recognize that the destruction of that personality, the separating of us from our culture, the separating of us from our history, is a separation of us ultimately from our identity. It means a split and a schism is created in the personality. When a schism and a split is created in the personality, the individual is made exceedingly uncomfortable. It is the first rule of brainwashing. When you wish to brainwash a person, when you wish to transform their personality, you break them from their old personality. You break them from their old moorings. You make them question and doubt their previous culture and their previous learning. When you get them to begin to doubt themselves, when you get them to reject their culture, when you get them to see their past lives as negative, when you get them to feel ashamed of that past life, when you get them to feel guilty of that past life, and any good brainwasher knows this, and you check out the Moonies and any other brainwashing organization, you will see this process being put forth. Once you get that, the individual then is left in a tremendous state of confusion, in a tremendous state of ambivalence. That state is painful. it motivates the individual then to seek some kind of relief, to seek some way out. Then it becomes the function of the brainwasher to say, if you follow my way, if you accept my definition, if you do it the way I say do it, if you look at it the way I say look at it, if you value it the way I say value it, then you will feel better. See how happy we are. And you know, often in these quasi-religious brainwashing places, you see the people running around smiling, and they're all glory, and they're all happy, and they're all loving, and they're all, you know, and here's this confused person cut off from family, cut off from his community, cut off from everything he's known, and is filled with pain, and yet these people seem to be so loving, they seem to be so brotherly, they seem to be so sisterly. Then let me get what they have. And of course these people are here to say, see, if you thought the way we thought, if you look at things the way we look at it, you'll be happy, you'll be one, you'll be accepted. Then often the individual then accepts the values and the orientation of the brainwashing group and then becomes a part of that group. The splitting then of the African personality is a necessary process in inculcating into that personality an alien personality, an alien spirit, creating the personality of servitude. It makes possible then in that African personality, that is the split African personality, makes it possible then for the African to begin to believe the lies, to accept the European distortions, to accept European reality, to accept then the stereotypes the Europeans have projected. And it's very interesting as you ride the subways today, and it becomes an embarrassing event to watch our youngsters use the degrading term they use again and again, Nigger! So loudly, so unself-consciously. When I grew up, the idea of using this term in public, the idea of letting white folk hear you using that term, calling one, letting any other group of people hear you referring to yourself by that term was unbelievable. But now this seems to be the coin of the realm. And we hear it all the time. Yeah, that nigga this, that nigga that. And, you know, it just goes again and again and again. People must have been destroyed in many ways to talk about themselves in public and to be this way so loudly and so clearly. You must then break the African person from his African identity in order for this to happen. And this, of course, is what happens. Nature abhors a vacuum, we say. In other words, where there's a vacuum, there's an attempt for that vacuum to be filled in some way or another. And of course, we see that when we suck sodas with a straw, we create a vacuum, of course, and that vacuum sucks into it whatever we are drinking. When you create a vacuum in the personality by separating the African personality from its African identity, then there is an attempt for that personality to suck into itself something else, to fill its emptiness. When the European then is in control of information, when the European is in control of so-called knowledge, when the European is in control of so-called reality, in control of definition and so forth, it will be these things that are sucked into the African personality. When the European projects lies as truth, there will then be these lies sucked in through the vacuum of the split African personality and accepted as truth. And then this personality, these sucked in lies, these sucked in perceptions, these sucked in distorted views of reality will take on a life of their own. They will take on a structure and an organization and represent themselves as a personality. At that point, the African personality becomes possessed by a spirit. When we hear, as I said earlier, about the black boys and our children talking that language on the subway and speaking the way they speak, in a way it is not they who speak. It is the spirit in them that speaks using their mouths, using their bodies. When they then believe the lies that they cannot learn as well or better than any other people, when they are afraid to try, when they are afraid of failure, when they are afraid of success, when they are afraid to challenge the European. You see, we talk about racism. But I don't think we are yet really ready to do something about it. Because doing something about it in the ultimate sense means preventing and neutralizing the perpetrators of racism. Ultimately, it means, ladies and gentlemen, removing the Europeans' ability to perpetrate racism in the world. Not getting the European to love us, not getting the European to so assimilate with us or to accept us, but getting the European in a position where no matter how scandalous he is in terms of us, he can do a doggone thing about it. Because we then have the power in and of ourselves to defend ourselves against his insult and against his slander. Ultimately, then, the removal of racism for the world would mean the ultimate neutralizing of European power. But many of us are not ready yet to take on that task. Many of us are still afraid that we are not up to that task, that we cannot defeat the European, that we cannot neutralize the European. So we have opted for some kind of armistice, some type of suing for peace, some type of getting along, because we figure that is the best that we can do. Then in this sense, then we will be continued to be possessed by an alien spirit. And that alien spirit then will speak to us. When we then fail to believe in ourselves as people, it is because that spirit has taken over us, and it says to us what the European has said: you can't succeed, you can't run the world on your own, you're incapable of having a culture. Without us, you wouldn't have VCRs, you wouldn't have TVs, because see, you're not technical, and you know you love it. You wouldn't have compact disc, and you know you're into your music, you see, and you wouldn't have this, and you wouldn't have that. Europeans are mathematically gifted, and you are not mathematically oriented, and Jews can count money, and you don't know how to keep money. That means that there's a spirit in us, and that spirit whispers to us, and it keeps us from attempting many of the things that we should attempt. This can only occur when we have been separated from our African selves.